My nose is itchy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today is Monday, September 17th, 2018. It is 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Admissions Live. I'm your host, Chris Dorso, and today's live broadcast, we are talking about the new 2018 E-Expectations Report. The E-Expectations Report is put out every year by our friends at On the Update and Ruffalo Note Levitz. And it's a report now 14 years in the making that is about how college-bound students engage digitally with higher ed websites and social media and all those kinds of things. But first, Admissions Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. Our episodes offer you direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. You can be a part of our live broadcast by sharing your knowledge, participate in today's discussion by tweeting us using the hashtag HigherEdLive, and we will take questions throughout the show. All of our episodes are free and easy to access in the video archives at higheredlive.com, or you can take us with you on the go in podcast form at your favorite local podcast distributor. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. Planning, organizing, and maintaining college and university web content is challenging. Competing priorities, resource limitations, and siloed departments all have the potential to derail content projects. And whether you're preparing for a large-scale website redesign or building a capital campaign microsite or refreshing a few key pages, whatever, you want to get the right content to the right audience at the right time and within budget. And so Shannon Lannis, content strategist, I made up a word, at M. Stoner, leads content planning and delivery for higher ed websites on September 26th. That is next Wednesday. No, 2 Wednesdays. What is today? I have no idea what today is. So a week and a half away. September 26th, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, hosted by Gather Content. She will share practical examples and techniques that you can use to avoid common pitfalls of content delivery. Today's episode is also sponsored by our friends at Omni Update. As the #1 resource students use to research colleges, your website deserves the #1 web content management system for higher ed. And OU Campus is built specifically for higher ed, has the most higher ed users, very, very easy to use. I've been on Omni Update for years, and it's fantastic. And it's backed by award-winning support, and you can check it out at omniupdate.com. Our guest today is the fantastic Stephanie Geyer. Stephanie heads up marketing and creative services at Ruffalo Note Levitz. And you hear noises in the background because this is not some sort of overproduced studio podcast. We are live to Stephanie's backyard is where we are. Stephanie's been part of the brain trusts of E-Expectations since it began 14 years ago. Hello, Stephanie Geyer.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So this is one of those shows where we get into a million topics. So let's dig right in. So E-Expectations has been going on for, as I mentioned, 14 years. Let's talk about the basics real quick for those of you who are not familiar with E-Expectations. How did it start, and how do we get from where it started to where we are now?
Wow. So started around a conference table at then Noel Levitz, now RNL, and just wondering what those crazy kids were doing with these interesting new social media resources like MySpace and LiveJournal. So shortly after the Pony Express ended, and certainly before where we are with Snapchat and iPhone 10 and all of the artifacts that make our lives interesting. So yeah, we've marched along and really excited about some of the results, all of the results from 2018, some new questions in the mix, and always grateful for the participation of our community. I get great question ideas every time I present this, and so I would love it if that happened as a result of our conversation today. You just need to use the hashtag EXpect on Twitter. Find me at Steph Geyer or email me, and you never know, your question may be the thing we're talking about this time next year.
Right, you could become internet famous.
Yes. Add to your 15.
What was the major focus this year? Now that we've moved on from questions about fax machines and MySpace, what was the major focus?
Well, as always, we do too much. Let us know if we do too much. And so in terms of focus, wanting to know a little bit more about how they dig into college websites, a little bit more on their experience priorities, a little bit more about the circumstances that take them from their mobile screen into a desktop or laptop, just to get some context. And I think some interesting findings, building on a question about navigation perspectives and preferences. We see some interesting shifts, so we'll talk about that too. And then social media, always a big question, what's happening. I think this leads me to tell you, we facilitated the study in March and April of this year, and that was right when Facebook was in hot water because of the Cambridge Analytica. Now, we have been seeing a steady decline in Facebook use for prospective high school, college-bound students, so the younger generation, really took a significant dive. And I think the scandal had something to do with it, although it has been a steady decline. So we can talk more about that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're definitely, I mean, every year we say that something's dead. You know, it's either email is dead or something. Is email dead, by the way, this year? Finally?
Not dead yet. Nope.
That's good to know.
It feels happy.
Right. But the sort of societal impact of social media certainly is relevant on this kind of any kind of a poll, but timeliness and all that. So that's a really interesting point. Now, I had a bunch of questions, but I'm going to go off script right away because there's something you said that I thought was really interesting. So the balance between mobile use and desktop, and everything we do now in admissions and marketing land is geared around phones. But students are still using computers in some cases, like real old-timey computers. This is like a Throwback Thursday expectations. So, is there, because I did notice that in there, and of course now I'm going to flip through and see if I can find it, but maybe you'll just know where it is. That balance between mobile and the desktop experience, and our students carrying over what they're doing on mobile to the desktop.
Yeah. So if you want to bounce to 26, I think it is.
Slides, slides. All right, hang on.
Slides. Hey, because it is one click above Pony Express here, in my backyard here in Colorado. So if you take a look at that, I'll look at it.
Share.
There you go.
And boom, there you go.
Yeah. So we asked, are there circumstances in which you would switch to a bigger screen? Meaning, would you go to a laptop or desktop? Yeah. And so here's the order of their responses. So if they thought they were really going to be digging in, looking for a while, they didn't quantify how long is a while, but and then they went on to kind of specify, well, if I'm comparing different programs or majors within an institution, maybe they're thinking about a business admin degree, or maybe they're thinking about an accounting degree, and comparing those two. Comparing overall differences between two or more different schools overall. So curious to see that they might be flopping back and forth between tabs and perhaps comparing programs too, but also the general experience that they might have. Completing an RFI. Now this is interesting because we see also submitting application, and we know that cost calculators were kind of the highest, most influential resource for juniors in particular, just above websites overall. But filling out forms still happening on mobile devices. So about a third of the students said that they were completing an RFI or request for information on a mobile device, but many more on this particular question said that they would do that on a larger screen.
Okay, now I want to address a couple of things that you mentioned there. And so the RFI I think is important because my favorite stat in this year's report as I was going through it was that 50% of seniors gave up on a web form because it was too long.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite rants and raves when I'm standing up in person at conferences or clients talking about these RFI forms, which are just so beleaguered with questions. It's too much. And I like this data point because it perhaps gives our colleagues some confidence to thin it out. My favorite one to pick on is the ridiculous question, how did you hear about XYZ University? Honest to God, really, we just don't need to ask that question in this setting, especially if it's going to tick them off and have them abandon the form. Wouldn't you rather find that information from Google Analytics or other digital data and believe in it and save your questions for things that are really relevant? Like, you know, hey, what class year are you? Or what's your email address? How about that? Or can we text you? Definitely.
Yeah. So since you mentioned texting, you know, we here at Brockport, we are full on texters. My last job, we were not. And so I've been sort of thrown into the deep end of the text world. And even in just the handful of months that I've been here, we have found texting to be wildly effective, which I don't want to say it surprised me, but I think it exceeded my expectations on what we were going to get out of text messaging.
Tell me what makes it wildly effective. Like, where do you see them latching on to texting?
I think the one thing that we've really noticed is when you give students a specific call to action that's simple and something that they can handle in a text message, they'll respond, and they're responding at much better rates than it would take for them to hit reply, type in what, you know, because part of the thing with emails, you know, we've been hammering for years on, oh, students are emailing us like they're texting us, and they're using the letter U to say you, these kinds of things. And we can just respond in a quick text. And we sit down text with very specific, it's not too late kind of text. We're live, baby, we're live. It's not too late text. Text, orientation reminders, tour reminders, all those little kinds of things where a quick response of, even if it's just, no, I'm not interested. Okay, we were able to knock off a couple hundred students who we stopped emailing because we knew they were not interested anymore. Or we were able to then direct them to be able to say, oh, they had questions about financial aid. Let's take these 8 students who replied with financial aid questions and get them over to financial aid and get them some help. So really, really effective for very specific calls to action.
I think you're so smart to go in that direction. I don't have the data up in front of me, but we did ask about preferences for topics for texting, and they definitely skew much more transactional, deadline, quick hit, not like, oh, hey, here are 50 awesome things about our engineering program. That's not what they want in that venue.
Right.
So I think, you know, to your point earlier about having a good content strateger, a good content person who's keeping an eye on that, and also, you know, your team in admissions taking those responses and acting on them right away, like funneling people. Oh, hey, here's a person who's maybe sideways about financial aid, or who has this question we weren't expecting or weren't soliciting. Like, getting right back to them is the other half of texting, not just pushing it out, but doing something because of what you learned. So you're just super smart.
Well, thank you. So I pulled up our stats while you were talking, and looking at our annual report from this year, of the students who we had a response from, basically. So we send out a lot of texts, and admittedly, a lot of them go unanswered, like emails. Oh, yeah. But of those who responded, text response, meaning that they had some sort of conversation with us, almost a third of them enrolled. It was, almost, looks like about 28% of our freshman class did text with us. Now, again, there's the whole cart horse thing. It's, were they otherwise interested, and that's why they were responding, whatever. But we know that when we did send out messaging, students responded to it. So if you're in 2018 still on the fence about texting, it's time.
Oh, please.
Unless, as I
Yes.
always say, you're one of our competitor schools, in which case, no, stay away from
In which case, shh.
it. In fact, you are free to go on lunch now. You're good to go. So, one of the things that came up in the study that I loved is one of the key takeaways is that the website is everything. Is this news in 2018 that the website is everything?
I am the consultant with a firm grasp of the obvious, but there are still folks that just are not acknowledging and acting on the fact that your website is where they go. And we still see application as first source. Even in our data set for eXpectations this year, there were 17% of the seniors who said that they had applied but had not completed an RFI or raised their hand in any way. So why would you not pay attention to this epic self-serve tool that they are going to use whether you feel good about your site or not? Why not? What are we waiting for?
That's just it. It's there, and that's where they're going to land in most cases. I mean, I know we do a lot about SEO, and they're Googling us, and it goes to, it's one of these adages that we've been saying in marketing for years. Every page on your website is an admissions page, because students are not necessarily going to brockport.edu and then going from there. They're Googling the program they're interested, and they're going from there, or they're Googling the college name and the program. And the studies seem to find that that's where they say that they're finding their college.
Yeah, totally. It's also astonishing to me when folks still throw up their hands and say, well, I can't do anything about the academic program pages, which are the front door for so many students. I mean, they just tell us this year after year. They want to dig in that channel. They want to affirm, hey, this school has the major or a collection of majors that might work for me once I figure it out. So why would you, as marketers, relinquish control of that front door page? You need partnership with academics. You need solid SEO strategy to make sure that folks are getting into those doors. And you need to look at your templates. So there was an interesting new question that we asked. Let me see if I can find the number. Maybe you can bring it up. Here it is. It's the 24th panel in the deck that I sent you. What frustrates you or frustrates them about your website? And so there was this interesting kind of dichotomy in the results. There it is. Yeah. So the biggest result, not enough information to answer my questions.
Oops.
Okay. Whoops. On back.
No.
Oh.
Okay, we're back.
You've lost your mind.
There it is.
So look at the first one, not enough information. And then the next one, too much to read. And even going beyond that, link options don't make sense to me. So I think, at first I looked at the first response, highest response, and then second highest in order by juniors and said, what's going on here? Too much to read, but not enough information. What's happening? And what I think it has to do with is the layout, the template, and how we crush so much into these pages that they're looking for. And we have overburdened global navigation, sidebars galore, and maybe not the right architecture, the right content strategy to answer the most likely question that brings them to that page. Hey, do you have this program? Does it look like it's worth it? And walk them into deeper detail. So I think this really gets at architecture, templates. And, when I started working in higher ed and when dinosaurs walked the earth and we did not have the interwebs, we talked about this phenomenon, but from a paper perspective. And it was kind of this bad habit of getting a big 9x12 envelope and taking every stupid thing we had printed, flyers, loose sheets, applications, maybe there's a view book in there, and let's throw the road piece in there, and let's slap a direct mail letter on top, and there's a sticker, let's put that in there too for an inquiry. And just not a great approach, and maybe folks are still doing that. But I think that that mindset, like that concern that if we don't put it all in there, somebody's going to be dissatisfied. When what I think the data suggests is that they're dissatisfied because we are not editing effectively. We need to do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that, is again, looking at analytics. I mean, what legitimately are people clicking on? And
Yeah.
it's 2018. That stuff's very, very easy to find. It's not like it's a great mystery. If there's information that we think is important, but students do not think it's equally important and they're not clicking on it, then it's taking up valuable real estate that we could fill with things that they actually want. And that seems like a really basic idea. Putting it into practice, of course, is a whole nother thing, especially when you're talking about institutional politics and whatnot. But it's not rocket science.
I like to say rocket surgery.
That's
my juxtaposition of rocket science and brain surgery, and I think elevates it up a notch.
So I want to talk videos, because there was the video stat came up in that slide too, and it's the whole students don't want to watch long videos. So our number one video goal is to make a short video, and instead of our number one goal to be making a good video. And I understand length is important, but again, it goes back to the website too. Content is important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, making choices about your video. Seniors, 68% said that they were more likely to consider runtime, looking at a runtime for a video before launching it, compared to the juniors at 53%. But still, more than half are scanning that runtime before they decide to get into that video. So what's the right runtime? 2 minutes and more is too much. They're not going to do it. But if we can maybe look at a minute 30, we're going to be in better shape there. And I think, yeah, there it is. Curating that video, curating the content. They are really, in video, as with photography, looking for a sense of place and people, not so much the talking heads, though, not so much faculty discussing their discipline or alumni, but getting a sense of fit. And again, I think editing and curating the content, trying not to, thank you, yeah, right on, trying not to pack too much in, and having confidence that this one video view is not the only thing, the only content that they're going to consume, that we can have layers and repetition and really think strategically about what are our key positioning themes, our value propositions, what sets us apart, and where do we pitch those into individual elements of video? How do we choose a photo that represents that? How do we craft an email that imparts some, but not all of those thoughts?
And I think there's certainly a balance when it comes to all of these kinds of things. I got an email this morning from the Chronicle as they're touting a Generation Z report. And one of their bullets, I was like, oh, how interesting. We're talking about that today. I should have responded and been like, hey, Chronicle, watch the show. So anyway, one of the bullets in the email talked about Generation Z's, quote, preferred mix of face-to-face, virtual, and experiential learning. Now, it was aimed at, not enrollment and marketing necessarily. It was aimed at sort of the entirety of the educational experience. And that's a lot of buzzwords. It's experiential and it's virtual and whatever. How do we make that mix happen? And again, it comes down to content. It's video and it's texting and it's emails and banner ads and finding that sweet spot in and around everything.
Yeah. And I think the key, Chris, is not sweating the venues so much, and stop wishing for venues to disappear so you can ignore print or ignore email, but to really focus in on your content architecture. What are those positioning themes that set you apart, and where do they play best? So in social channels, talking about fit, talking about sense of place and people in maybe other layers like email and print and website content, please. Really hitting on academics and cost, getting people to use calculators and thinking strategically about the juxtaposition one to the next, and what venues are best for what messages, and then measure the stuffing out of everything.
As always, as always.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about images. You have a cool slide here about the images that students, that you tested for various appeal, and so I'm going to bring that.
Good.
Up.
Yeah.
So here's our image slide. So talk me through this.
Sure. So I decided to go clean slate. I'd been looking at the same kind of raft of images for a couple of years and seeing really consistent results. So went out shopping for some new stock photos. And this is what I came up with after some consultation with my partners at Omni Update and my team. And, representing a whole bunch of different elements and aspects of the college experience. So you can see from the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are top most appealing images. And 3 of the 5 don't really have discernible people in them. Obviously, that arena shot has lots of people, but you can't make them out. And that's really kind of a setting or sense of place. And the rooftop shot is very much like that drone shot that we looked at for a couple of years previously that was always the winner.
Yep.
And then look at the snow on the ground. Hey, you in Brockport, I think this is a sign for you that you shouldn't be afraid to schedule a photo shoot when the snow's flying.
There you go. See, that's the thing. Now,
for
those of you who are listening to the podcast and you're not looking at your screens, we've got 10 images here on the screen. They're all very, very, you could see any one of these 10 on any college view book that you pick up. They are very, very standard. But the ones that, as you said, Steph, really the ones that are a sense of place are the ones. It's the arena, and it's the lawn with the building, and the overhead shot. The ones that, and even because you even have 2 science lab photos in here.
Mm-hmm.
The one that is wider is more interesting. It shows more activity, and so it's like even things that you would think would be virtually interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
There was a clear preference to, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting you point that out. So I call it the engineering lab. It's a 2 shot. So there are 2 young men and all kinds of equipment, and juxtapose that against a microscope shot where a young woman is peering into a microscope in some kind of lab. There are beakers and Bunsen burners, but it's a pretty tight shot on her face. And that particular image was one of the least favorite for juniors and seniors. So these nuances, I think it makes a great case for careful photography selection and strong art direction in photo shoots, for sure.
Definitely. So let's see, there's something else in here that I am looking for that I wanted to ask about. So let's talk social media a little bit.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about Facebook earlier, and Snapchat's a thing now that is colleges are certainly doing more. What sorts of trends are you seeing?
I think Snapchat has really flattened out. We see pretty steady daily use of Snapchat, and certainly in the Geyer family household here now with a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a college graduate, they're still snapping madly. But when we looked at the data about where college and college-bound students want to find content from schools, it's not Snapchat. So there was even a pretty significant decrease in the small numbers from last year for seniors, going down to like 7%. So when I look at everything in terms of overall daily use and then relevance that the marketplace says different channels have for their higher ed choice, And if I were you, I would double down on Instagram. I would probably keep Facebook in place, knowing that there's still going to be some prospective students in there, but parents from our 2017 study are definitely thinking about Facebook as another channel in to kind of sort out the lists that their students are telling them, schools that they're considering. Instagram video, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so I want to bring this up because I thought this was interesting. So this here shows what students are saying there. Can you see my arrow?
Yeah, I can. Good job.
I didn't realize that. We're live. So this is the percentage of that students are saying they're using these various apps, yes?
Yes. So, and I brought in, just to, make a super chart, which is a hallmark of all things data at Ruffalo Noel Levitz. We love the data. We love to compare. So we've got 17 data and 18 data. So seniors, 17 on the far left, and then 18. So we see a little swing up for seniors and juniors in Instagram. Snapchat flat for seniors, minuscule increase for juniors. And this is just in general daily use.
Right. YouTube, but I think it's interesting when you switch to the next slide and you see Snapchat use for college research. Much so they're clearly as people, but they are not necessarily using it for college research.
Totally. And look at Facebook. I mean, Facebook overall use declined, and then Facebook for higher ed declined.
Right. That's a significant drop on Facebook for college search. But again, going back here,
Yep. Boom.
Very interesting to see.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark Zuckerberg. Something's going on, dude. And look at Instagram. Instagram increase for seniors, big increase for juniors. Hence my double down recommendation. And I'll say, from my focus group of 3 here, I've decided to start using Instagram more often because it's the only way I can get the attention of my 14-year-old. She has promised me there is no Facebook in her life forever. So there it is.
Our 12-year-old this weekend was in the back seat and said, I haven't been on Instagram in a while. I need to get on Instagram more often. We're like, you took a picture like 2 hours ago. What do you mean? It's not physically possible for you to be on Instagram more often than you already are.
Oh, yeah. But they're on Snapchat minute by minute. It's delightful.
So what am I missing here? What are the other takeaways that are really important?
Let me just have a quick scan through because, just a lot. So I think this is interesting too. Do you want to pop over to 22? And this just goes back into some of my rants about content curation and information architecture. So last year, we asked this question, what are your preferences for navigating within a college or university website? And look at that first cluster. And I did a little data switch for you here. So the first 2 items are both 17 study results. 22% of seniors, 20% of juniors from last year saying that they look at links that the campus elects to put in their global nav. And then look at how it jumped up. And so that juxtaposed against using a search engine. So we had a couple of years ago, doing some user research, witnessed time after time, asking students to work through a particular client website instead of using the global nav or choices, within the content on the page. They would open up a new tab, go out to Google or just in the address bar and do a search to come out and then back in. And so that's why we asked this question. And last year, about a third said, yeah, I go out to a search engine, I look, and then I come back into a site perhaps. But that seems to be shifting. And someone maybe one of my clients or colleagues said, well, hey, maybe we finally figured out how to make a website that works for students. And I would like to think so, yes. But
After all these years,
know,
finally.
After all these years, we got it. Yay. Let's take a vacation. No. I look at college websites for schools. No, there's still opportunity to get it right. But I think the marketplace, maybe a little bit more comfortable, maybe the responsive and the curation that's had to happen with architecture and choreography going to a mobile site, maybe that has helped some. Mm-hmm. I think there's more data to be collected. That's my answer here.
But I think that sort of jump in students, really looking at the page and finding what it is that they want. And I've been saying this for a while, families, students, they're much more savvy about what they read online now. Mm-hmm. They're not going to just take what you're throwing out there as at face value. They're going to look for what they want, and they're going to, if they can't find what they want, they'll move on. But they want to be able to get the information they want quickly. We had a landing page for our custom view book online. When we went from linking to the landing page to linking to the first actual content page instead, our bounce rate plummeted. We went from like an 80% bounce rate to like a 7% bounce rate because we got students right into the content that they wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, big, splashy, fancy. Like they want, this is marketing. I don't want to waste time on marketing. I want the information that I need.
Yeah, totally. I love that that percentage too. I think that it speaks well of, paying attention to the data and replicating that, or, had you seen some other result, making incremental shifts. And I think it's not about big changes. I think it's about noodling and looking at, a great data studio report out of Google Analytics and saying, oh, hey, look, our RFI completes have increased on this page when we present it in this way. Or, hey, when we cut the RFI form down to like 3 questions, our completion rate soared. So, rinse and repeat for sure.
It's not rocket surgery, as they say. Get the information out there. All right. Well, we are coming up on time. Stephanie, any last minute words of wisdom for the higher ed admissions enrollment marketers of the world?
Yeah. Well, not a word of wisdom, but just a request. Like, let me know what you're chewing on. Let me know what questions are still outstanding for you that I can go back into the marketplace and ask on your behalf. Go dig into the report. You can get the trend report. If you're interested in a PowerPoint deck to share with your colleagues, with the grown-ups on your campus, just email me. I'll get it to you, or I'll hook you up with a webinar and deliver it for you. So
there you go.
Yeah, I'm hoping I see folks at High Ed Web and AMA in a couple of months. But don't wait. Just find me and let me know what's going on.
Yep. Quick plug for High Ed Web. If you are working in the higher education web space, you want to be in Sacramento in October. That is where the annual High Ed Web conference will be, October 21st to the 23rd, or thereabouts.
Yep. Out there.
21st to the 24th. So do please, Stephanie will be there. I'll be there. Much more detail on the invitations and all other great stuff, content and web and social and everything. So as always, Stephanie Geyer, thank you so very, very much for taking some time with us. And please drop us a tweet or drop us an email. We are always happy to answer questions and talk. And thank you so very much. Hang on a second. I've got, there's a link to get the expectations at the Higher Ed Live Twitter. You can also go to the Higher Ed Live website, higheredlive.com, and a little box will pop right up. They take you right to e-expectations. Thank you so much to our sponsor, M. Stoner, and our episode sponsor, Omni Update, and to all my colleagues here at the College at Brockport. And we will see you next time on Higher Ed Live.
Thanks, Chris.